Welcome back to another episode of Two Types of People. I'm your host, Pat Sitkins, and today I have a four-time Emmy-winning producer, a guy that's been on shows like Steve Harvey, Rosie O'Donnell, Rachel Ray, The Voice, and more. A very good friend of Alex Boylan's. That's why he's here. I've got Shane Farley on the show today. Shane, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Pat. This is really exciting.
It's what we're doing is Alex Boylan is chapter 1 in the book. He came on the show. I'm sure you saw it. And we are trying to really frame the people that gave their time in the book. So to tell their stories, I want to bring not only them off the pages, but the people that have influenced their life, had a major impact, and maybe tell some good stories along the way. So that's
Great.
The whole point of today. And Shane, you know, as I was thinking through it, you've been around television through a lot of different eras, I guess, you know, to see reality and streaming and now with social media and just all these different eras of television. The way I looked at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a guy who has helped bring stories to life. Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Anytime you're involved in television, whether it's like how I started, which was in, talk shows, you would help people come on and tell their story, whether it was a celebrity who was coming on to promote a project or like a real life human interest story, you would help tell their story. And that hasn't changed, whether it's traditional television or if you're just producing your own YouTube series, like you still are telling a story.
That is very, very cool. So I looked at this, I'm like, man, you could be almost like a professor in the human, the human condition, because you have to go out there and you have to really see what resonates with audiences, right? And I think that it changes maybe season to season, year to year, but for you to really understand what people are resonating with, what stories are hitting with people today, I think that almost makes you a study of humanity.
Yeah, it's like when you do a talk show, you are doing basically 7 segments within an hour. And we used to do shows that would do 180 new episodes a season. So for instance, Steve Harvey, it's a variety show. So I would have segments where it would be a celebrity coming on and talking about their experience working on a project, but you'd be getting other stories out of them. There'd be like that human interest story or like a kid hero. There would be a fashion segment. There would be a cooking segment. And so there was so much that you would do in a season. So a lot of it was figuring out ways to do the same thing, because you know that certain things work for a certain audience. So, and although things would change from time to time, there were certain things that just kind of held fast. It's like we all love a payoff of some sort. So whether it was a makeover segment, you would have to figure out ways to do it throughout the season and throughout the years where it felt different, yet there was something familiar to the audience. So it's like, okay, because people are flipping by, they're flipping by channels. And so you would see something and you have to get them to stop, right? Just the way people are on their phones now. So if you're flipping through the TV stations and you see what looks like a makeover of some sort, a guy with really long hair and a beard, and you know that that's going to pay off. You just want to figure out things to do within that segment that people haven't seen before. But at the end of the day, they know that they're going to see the guy with short hair and no beard. So it's like, it has to feel familiar for them to want to stay and trust you, but it has to feel fresh. Otherwise, it's like, if I've seen it too many times, I don't want to see it. But we know that in daytime, makeovers work. So it was just figuring out, how do we do it and how do we do it differently? And I think that was the true test of whether or not people could stick around for 25, 30 years, if they could make it feel fresh every time.
I like that. And I feel like that's a good segue into the whole purpose of this project. So Shane, there are two types of people in this world. And from your experience in this world and in this industry, what are they?
Well, it's funny because this is an Alex Boylan afternoon, right? So I'll use Alex as an example. Alex to me is equal parts dreamer and doer. And I don't think that there's a lot of people who are like that. Um, I met Alex when he won The Amazing Race. I was producing the Rosie O'Donnell show. He was, at that point, the biggest reality star in the world because he had just won what was the biggest reality show. So Rosie O'Donnell loved the show. So, like, I would have to, both Survivor and Amazing Race, I'd be watching to see who was coming off because then I would be producing them the next day. And so I had, knowing that Alex and other people were going to be coming off of that show, I watched the show. I was a huge fan. And then I produced them. And then it's kind of rare that that I would still be in contact with that person 25 years later, but he was a really special person. And over the years, I found him to be both a dreamer and a doer. Like, he's the kind of guy that would, everybody after a reality show says, I want to stay in television. Of course they want to stay in television, right? They just had everybody interested in them. Every TV show wants them. They're going on Letterman. They're going on Rosie O'Donnell. It's like, of course you want to be in television. They're flying you first class places. You're staying at the nicest hotels. People want to meet you, all of that stuff. So everybody from a reality show, Pat, moves to Los Angeles after their show. Everybody does. If there was a period of time in the early 2000s that if you went into, I'm trying to think of the bar on Sunset. It's got the mechanical bull. You maybe have been there. It's blanking on the Saddle Ranch. If you went in there, you saw every reality person from several seasons back. Alex being one of them. I think I went there one time with
I was gonna
Alex.
ask. Okay.
Yeah. And so you saw everybody, and everybody's like, I want to be in television. But then they would just kind of wait around to see if anybody wanted that fourth person to the end on Survivor from season 26. And it's like, so you just kind of hoped somebody would call you, and nobody gets called, right? Alex was like, I want to be in television, but then went and found a production company and started working for this small production company, logging tapes, I think, like at the bottom of the barrel, and then figured out his way to get on camera, which I think took a couple of years, and did everything in between the entry level job to being the star of his own show with this production company. Like, that doesn't happen, Pat. People all say, like, oh, I'm going to make it happen, but then they don't do anything, right? This is a guy who Rosie O'Donnell was talking about every day on the air. Millions of people were hearing her stories about this guy. And then he's like logging tapes a few years later because it was part of the dream. He's a dreamer and he's a doer. And that, to me, blows my mind. And it's always been that way with him. So he works his way up, and then he leaves that, and he's like, I'm going to start. He calls me up one time. I'm in LA, and I was living in New York, and I'd come out to LA because I was casting a show. And so he's like, hey, I'm in meetings all day, but you're in Santa Monica and I'm in Santa Monica. Let's have a drink. So I go over, I meet him, and he's telling me about this company he started called Dream Jobbing. And like, he left what he was doing, which was a paid job, to just create this company. And within 3 months, it was up and running, like from the time that he spoke to me. Like, I don't know how long he had been working on it before that. And then I was able to work it into VH1. So I was able to I think we kicked it off on VH1 because I was just so blown away. I was like, we have to do this together. It's just, and Pat, it's over and over again with this guy. Like, he has an idea and he does it. You know how many people I know that are like, hey, I'm gonna start flipping houses, but then they never buy that first property, right? It's like, there's so many of those guys, and they're not bad guys. They're not Alex Boylan.
That is interesting. They're not Alex Boylan. That's the quote of the whole episode right there, Shane.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you're right. And the tagline of the book's full title is Two Types of People, Insights from Top Performers to Help You Make Decisions, Act, and Grow. And so what you're talking about here is the people that they dream and they make a decision, right? I'm going to go to Hollywood, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to whatever, but it's the action part that's missing. And so that's the doer. So you're exactly talking about the cover of the book in what you're saying here. And I see that with Alex. You talk about, dream jobbing, which I remember they were doing that. I think they had
Yeah.
Dove when Dove was doing Self with
Yeah.
Nitro. They had
Yep.
Dove Ribnick on, and but yeah, and now with the college tour, there's some very special people in this world that I think can handle both sides.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so funny. You're talking about the book. He said to me, I don't know, about a year ago, we were like exchanging like crazy stories of the business. And he's like, I really think that with his time on college tour, that there's a lot of young people that are looking to where they're going to go to school and figure out what they're going to study. And I got to say, it's got to be scary right now with AI and what's happening in the world for somebody's like, what am I going to study? Like, is there even going to be a job for me when I get out of school? And Alex is right at that point where by creating College Tour, that he's in contact with these young people. He's on over 200 college campuses across the country, and he is the face of that show. Not only the creator and executive producer, he's the face of that show. So young people like look to him for information. And he was telling me a story, and he's like, I think I should put some of this into a book. And I was like, oh, I think you should as well. And then the next time we talked about it, Pat, he was handing me the book. Like that's to me that's crazy, because there's and I get to meet, when you do the type of work that I get to do, is like whether it was Steve Harvey or Rosie O'Donnell or whatever show it is, it's like you'd have like amazing celebrities and rock stars and Olympic athletes and just really inspirational people. Jeff Bezos came on the Wayne Brady Show when I worked on that. He was like a small little guy who talked about stealing pens from a hotel. I saw him recently. He walked past me at a high school graduation. Guy's jacked now. He's like, it's like so much has changed for him. But like you get to meet all these amazing people. But like Alex with the just creating the book and getting something like that done is just so impressive to me.
It really is. So Shane, which one would you say you are? Are you more of a dreamer or a doer, or a little bit of both?
I'm more of a dreamer than I am a doer. To be honest, I wish it was more like Alex, where it was more even. I will say that like my career, I knew what I wanted to do when I was probably middle school age. So
Really?
I knew really early on what I wanted to do. And then I did it, and I wasn't going to let anything get in the way of that. And then the really tough part, Pat, was about 25 years into it, the industry started to change, so like if you think about it, like people would watch my show if they wanted to know what to make for dinner or how to redecorate a room, or if they wanted to know what was happening with their favorite celebrity. Well, social media took away what you want to find out about your favorite celebrity, because then you could just go find out directly from them. TV took away what to make for dinner when they created the Food Network and HGTV, how to decorate my room. And then YouTube took all of that away. So all of the programming changed. And then their TV shows started going away, the shows that I did. So I had to figure out, again, how to continue to have a career in this business. But that was a necessity. Like that wasn't like me being a dreamer, like, hey, I want to figure out other things to do. That was a necessity thing. I feel like there are certain things that like I'll dream up and then I'll make happen. But I need it to be more, Pat, moving forward. I need to like really sort of follow my dreams a little bit more.
I like that. Well, and I think from your role, and I certainly don't know everything that goes into being you, Shane, but it feels to me like you need that visionary role as a producer to really, from the segments to the overall show to, 10 seasons down the road, it's knowing where this thing's going to go, and then having those doers around you. Yeah, you're going to roll up your sleeves a lot of times, but to have people that can go execute, I think that's a lot of what I do here, with this show and Adaptive, my day job of marketing. It's, I'm very much big vision, branding, strategy guy, I can also get
Yeah.
in and, I can make the emails and do the posts. But I think it's that nice balance of, just figuring out where I can provide the most value.
Yeah. That makes sense. I found a guy. Actually, I found him. It's like some years back. I'm trying to think of like maybe like 8 years ago. I get a phone call from a college buddy of mine, and he is says to me, he's like, "Do you still work in television?" And I was just about to start the Steve Harvey show, so I said, I do. Yeah, I'm starting the Steve Harvey show." And I'm like, "What's up?" And he's like, "I just wrote a book, and they're giving me a publicist, and I don't know anything about that world, and I just thought like." You're the only person I know in television, and maybe I could call you sometimes if I have a question. And I was like, sure. And now I know my friend from, although I hadn't been in touch with him since college, I could see on social media that he was a very successful divorce attorney. So I'm like, what book did you write? Like, what book does a divorce attorney write? Right. And he goes, it's called If You're in My Office, It's Already Too Late, a divorce lawyer's guide to staying married. And I was like, okay, first of all, that's brilliant, right? Like that's super clever. And then I'm like, wait, are you giving advice to people because of all the marriages that you helped destroy? Or like end? I want to say destroy because he wasn't in the marriage, but like end. Are you giving like practical advice to them from what you've seen? And he's like, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, first of all, that's perfect. So he wanted to get on the Today Show or Good Morning America, but shows like that, you're not going to get on as a first time author, and you have to have tape and they have to see it. So I'm like, hey, come on Steve Harvey, and I'll give you the tape and then you can run with it and you can take it to the Today Show. It's a college buddy. It's like an easy favor.
Yeah.
He comes on and Pat, he rated through the roof. So like all of a sudden the favor wasn't me to him. It was now him to me. Right. So I was like, dude, I'm going to bring it back to LA. We're going to now shoot a couple more. We shoot a couple more again through the roof. He did like 10 appearances over the course of 2 years. And then when the show went away, he continued to do press. Like he would do like a podcast here or a podcast there. He had like 38 million views on something like Kardashian type numbers. So now I'm like, I'm not even producing TV at this point, and I'm just like, wow, he is continuing to go up. So I reached out to him and I'm like, listen, you're doing all this press. Why don't you make money with it? And he's like, I get a law firm. I don't really need the money. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm thinking I need the money. So like maybe I'll come up with the idea. So I go, what if we did a digital prenup? And so he was like, yeah, we could do that. So we created Trusted Prenup, and it's now about 1 year in, and it's blowing up. So I don't even know why I started this story, Pat, but I think it's part of my thing is being able to is I think just like see talent, and that was part of doing the talk shows. You would see somebody like, okay, this is somebody worthy of coming on. This guy is just continuing to blow up. His name's James Sexton, and he is probably like we call him America's divorce attorney because he is all over the internet. He's everybody's favorite guest, and now because of this product, I should be good. Like this is a really successful business now because of him. But it all goes back to the TV thing of spotting talent and knowing like sort of what to do with them.
That is awesome. All right, so Shane, I want to ask you one more question, I guess industry question before we move on to a few more things. It was what I was thinking about because you've been around such successful, not only people that have their own shows, that have hosted their own shows, but like you were talking about, the just high performing guests that came through just day in and day out with your time there. What is something that separates people that have accomplished something versus someone that has a story that truly resonates with the masses? And what I mean by that is, I think there's a lot of people out there that are on par with people that have celebrity status because they've accomplished whatever it is, right? They've climbed mountains, done races, built businesses. There are people that have done just as well in this world, but their story's not out there. So what do you think separates those who really kind of break out from the noise and hit that stardom versus everyone else?
That's a great question. It could potentially just be a timing issue. Like we wanted to hear a certain story, or we were needing to, as an audience, we were needing to hear a story about a certain sort of triumph. And maybe that was what it was. Or maybe just some people are just really good at packaging themselves, like just really know and understand an audience, like understand. And I'm trying to think of an example um, of somebody recently where it's just like, just they're getting so much press for um that's a all right. So I'll use Steve Harvey for an example. This guy has been around for a long time, but when he wrote the book where he was for his daughters about like think I think it was like think like a man, act like a woman, or maybe it's the whatever it was in his mind, it was to teach his daughters how they should be treated moving in this world, and also like how they should conduct themselves, and for all women. This guy was a comedian for years. He had a couple of different television series, but he never connected until like connected at the level that he's at now until that moment. Then Family Feud, and of course he was phenomenal at Family Feud. But the Family Feud Steve that you see is the same Steve that is the comedian Steve. It's like we, the world fell in love with him after he gave that information to his daughters and to everybody. And then the talk show in Chicago, and then it moved to LA. It's like it was like the world needed to know that information at that time. And it was just sort of a rebranding of this guy who was at Showtime at the Apollo. We saw him late at night. We saw him, but like we saw him differently at that point. And I think that's what it was.
That is a great example and a great story. Thank you. No, I think that's
You got it.
fantastic. Okay, so a few more, and I like again to not only frame the people that are in the book, but certainly the guests that come on. So one thing I want to ask you is, it's about the relic. And so if we were to have a Two Types Hall of Fame, and you're in there, obviously, Shane, and we're walking through the hall, and you have one relic that you've donated to the museum that is uniquely you, uniquely yours, that only you could give to us, what would it be?
Todd, I knew you were going to ask me this question. Okay. So I actually grabbed it. And it's funny that I just mentioned Steve Harvey. So here's a photo. I'm trying to get the glare off. Here's a photo of me and Steve. And why this is so important to me is that at the time I got that show, the show was owned by WME, the talent agency. I was represented by WME for about 15 years, up until 3 months before they announced that they were buying this show with Steve. So it is in WME, it's like their job to find a client, like I was, to run that show. So they're interviewing all of their showrunner clients. I'm, of course, bummed out because I let them go 3 months earlier. But in my mind, I was like, if I can get in front of Steve, I'm getting this job. Like, it's not, Pat, it's not going any other way. It's going to be my job. So I do everything I can to get to his manager, who I had met briefly once. And I'm on that guy constantly, pushing. Get me in front of him, get me in front of him. At the last day of the interviews, I get the last meeting. So I go in and I'm sitting there, and I can tell that the WME executive who's there overseeing these meetings is not thrilled that I'm there, right? It's one of those, you know? So I sit down and I start showing Steve actual like research data that I had brought. And I'm talking to him the way that I know. I'm telling him basically what he wants to hear, what he wants his show to be. And he's saying in the meeting right there, because he was like leaned back. He's just like, listen, like, he's like, it's like he had just worked out. He's like sitting there in the lobby of this hotel. And he's like starts to lean up, and he's just like, I like this guy. I like this guy. But nothing is internal. He's saying this out loud. And I'm hearing it because it's like I'm right across the table from him. I'm thinking, wow, he is just put. So then I'm like, so now I lean in with the information. I keep pushing it. I'm like, Steve, don't let anybody tell you you can't have a show. Meanwhile, this executive right here, not thrilled because he realizes that Steve's going to say, when I get up, I want Shane Farley. And he's got to go back and say, none of your clients that are showrunners are going to get this job because Steve wants this guy. And that's exactly what happened. And so that picture is from Steve and I on the media day right before the show launched. And some reporters asking a stupid question, and Steve is just laughing at the fact that it's a stupid question and I have to answer it. And so like that is why that is so important to me, because there was no way I was getting that job, but I knew I was going to get that job.
I think this kind of flies directly in the face of what you answered earlier, because you are absolutely a doer, Shane. You're a dreamer, absolutely, but I mean, my goodness, I was hammering him, every buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely some doing if I've ever seen it. And again, it's the decision is one part of it, right? But it's that action. And I think as people go through the book and go through every one of the conversations I've had, people know, not necessarily in middle school what they want to do, but at some point there's a decision. Like Danielle Atomic, who's the head coach for University of Cincinnati volleyball, she remembers seeing volleyball for the first time and just knew that's what her thing was going to be. And so everyone has that moment of like something aligns. They go, this is my thing and I'm going to go. And for you, it was, in middle school, I'm going to go into television, but you knew Steve Harvey. And I mean, you said, without a doubt, I just have to get there. Dreaming is, I want to be, producer on Steve Harvey. Oh, shucks, I didn't get it because of all these things. You took action.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're more of both than you realize. Maybe a little more Alex Boylan than you thought.
Okay, I'll take that as a compliment. Thanks, Pat.
Absolutely. Okay, two more for you, and then we'll let you go, Shane. This started with a conversation about my college playing days. So, Alex and I met at JU, and when I was at JU, I had my one walk-up song changed in my senior year, but it's about music and the way that, there are songs that take you all the way back to a memory that can give you energy when you need it most. And so I want to know if there was a song that was always playing when you entered the room for the rest of your life, that one song that gets you going. What's your one walk-up song?
That's great, because there is a song that I hear, and for years I've been saying that this is sort of like, and it was long before me, so but it resonates with me, and it's Frank Sinatra's "That's Life," and it's like, I can't sing, otherwise I'd sing it to you, Pat, but it's like it's the lines, "You're riding high in April, shot down in May, but I know I'm going to get." But I know I'm going to change that tune when I'm back on top in June. And that's what the entertainment industry is. It's like you are crushing, and then all of a sudden you get a note to meet in the conference room, and they tell you, "Hey guys, we're done on Friday," right? And then it's like you pack up and you move. For me, it was like for 30 years moving coast to coast, back from New York to LA and LA to New York, and so that had happened so many times that I could be with an Emmy. Matter of fact, it's like Wayne Brady was canceled after the second season. We had won multiple Emmys with that show. So it's like I was packing an Emmy to leave. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to lose a job. We just won an Emmy. Well, I lost that job. It's like these things happen. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I'm riding high in April, shot down in May. That's my song.
I really like that. And there's a mantra or saying that I use around here a lot. It's "if you let it." Basically, we look at all these things, the deals that don't work out, the shows that don't happen, all these things that we get all twisted up about, and we realize it was all supposed to happen that way because it led to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And all of a sudden you look around and you're surrounded by people, not because of what you thought in the plan you had,
right?
It's just the way it worked out. And so, I agree. I think for any athlete, business owner, parent, whatever it is, you just know that you're going to get through it. And like you said, the highs, those are going to end too, just as much as the lows are going to.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So the final one, Shane, I want to ask you about is, again, we look at decisions, action, and growth as part of this book. And with that growth, I think a lot of that is hopefully helping people change their mindset, just identifying with the two types, every example that we have, and seeing where they, like we did today, just kind of seeing where at times we are a little bit of one and maybe a little bit more of the other, and just helping us make better decisions and growing as humans. And so part of that is looking at things that maybe they were beliefs or things that you really held to be true that you've changed your mind on. Because there are things in my life that, as I look at growing up, college, young adult, whatever it is, there are things that I've really changed my mind on, and I think for the better. And so I want to ask you, what is one thing that you've changed your mind on?
I I always knew I was a creative guy, and that's my whole career has been creative. But there were certain things that I just didn't have to do. Like, so when there was a period of time when I was creating shows, I would think of this concept and I would go to make a deck to sell this sort of pitch. And I would know what I wanted to say in the deck, but like tech wise, I was like, I didn't think of myself very techy. And then I would want to cut together sort of a sizzle reel. I could oversee the shoot, but then the editing of the sizzle reel, I would hire somebody. I would hire someone to do the deck. I would hire someone to do the editing. And I did that for years, and would pitch and sell projects that way. And then a period of time happened, Pat, where I was out of work, and I had this is before the digital prenup business. This is before the show that I sold about a year or so ago. And I didn't want to spend the money on paying someone to do these things for me. So I was like, I really have to sort of learn how to do this. So I just sat down every day, and I would work on a deck, and I would basically taught myself how to do it. And I'm now doing it at a level where I see professional people doing it, and I don't like it nearly as much as what I'm able to do. And the editing as well. And it's just crazy to me that I just sort of wrote that off for myself. I was just like, that's not who I am. I believed I was a certain person, and I didn't realize that at a certain age that I could learn something new and actually be good at it. And and I think so. I convinced myself that that wasn't my skill set, and my skill set was here. And I realized later that that was very different, and it's really good because if I sell a show that you feel great. But even if I create a deck and I create something that looks amazing, or I edit a piece of tape, and I'm doing that right now. I'm actually in the process of editing a pilot that I just shot, and I absolutely love it, Pat. And it's like I would have just passed that off to somebody else to do. And now it's like whether this show sells or not, and I think it will, just the ability to get the pilot to where I want it to be is a sense of accomplishment that makes me feel really good. So I would say that is the what has changed is the idea of who I thought I was and what I could actually learn and become.
That ties so well to Alex's book, The Miles That Make You. And we talked about, his whole analogy of the backpack, right? And
Yeah.
so, it's what you start with, what goes in there. And he and I talked about in his episode here about what you allow other people to put in there, right? So as you were talking through it, I was thinking about the labels and the labels that you place on yourself. Oh, I can't do that. That's not for me. I'm over here. And people get stuck in that. And, 20, 30, 40 years later, we're going, oh, well, that's not for me. And I'm just stuck in my ways instead of going, you know what? I can learn a new skill set, and I'm pretty darn good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, Shane, I've got one final question for you. I've got to ask your best Alex Boylan story to wrap things up.
Oh God, there's so many. He and I traveled together because we did a project. We were on the road together. But I think I think the best or my favorite is he was living in an apartment in Marina Del Rey at the time, and I drove over to his apartment because he was loaning me camping equipment and like a tent and stuff like that. I didn't have any of that stuff. I don't do that, but like I invited on this weekend and I was like, I know one guy who will have all of this equipment, and it was Alex. And so he came out of his house and we're standing by my car and we're talking. And at the time we were just catching up, and he was telling me that, and I'm trying to think what project he had finished. He had finished some project and he wasn't working on something new, and he was nervous, and he was like, I got to figure something out. And he's like, rent's due. And he was like saying all this stuff. And at the point, Pat, I wasn't working either. And the last show I had done had been like a year earlier. I had gotten divorced. That had drained me. And we're both in the street and we were laughing because in New York, after he had come off of Amazing Race, I remember being at some very fancy parties with him when we were like on top of the world. And now we're sitting in the street in Marina Del Rey, and he's broke and I'm broke, and I'm borrowing camping equipment. And so I'm just like, oh my God, we got to get out of this. We both have to get out of this. And we just had that moment. And then 2 weeks later, I got the Steve Harvey show, which is a story I told earlier. And soon after that, he had created a college tour. And then the next time we were like out having a drink somewhere, we're like, do you remember when we were in the street in Marina Del Rey? And it's so we still to this day bring that up. It's like, hey, we're not standing in the street of Marina Del Rey talking about, where we were. And it just goes to show you that there's a lot of people that I don't know that, like, I have a lot of friends that I don't know that I would be so open with about my personal finances or where I am in the world. But we were Alex is somebody who you can do that with, and he'll support you and help you in any way possible. And also the fact that we were going through it at the same time, and then we sort of came out of it at the same time, makes it really special. And I think about that from time to time. Every time I see him, I think of that, like, oh man, remember when we were there? And so it's good to be on the other side of it now.
That is an amazing story. And it ties right back to, again, his chapter, your song. So shout out to Frank Sinatra, because, boy, if you didn't just paint that perfectly and show why you chose that song, I don't know what else. So, Shane, it has just been an absolute pleasure to have you on today to get some context to who Alex is, what he's done, and to share your life, give the audience a bunch of gems, and just to hear a little bit about some of the fun times, on some of these shows. And congrats on everything you have going on, and the new pilot. Hopefully we'll hear something about it very soon. So let me know, and we'll tell the audience. I'm sure they'll want to know and go watch and support you for sure.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you for your time. This has been great.